You joined the Pakistan Rangers thinking you'd be a hero, a defender of the nation, someone who stands on the front lines protecting Pakistan's borders and maintaining law and order in its most chaotic cities. You imagined respect, decent pay, and the honor of serving your country in one of its elite paramilitary forces. Instead, you're stuck in a bureaucratic nightmare, caught between militant attacks and political warfare, underpaid for risking your life daily, blamed for human rights abuses you may or may not have committed, and trapped in a system where you're simultaneously too powerful and completely powerless. Welcome to life as a Pakistani Ranger, where your existence is defined by impossible missions, political manipulation, public suspicion, and a paycheck that barely covers your family's basic needs. Let me explain exactly why this career path is slowly destroying you. Section 1. The deadly reality. Let's start with the most brutal truth. Being a Pakistani Ranger means accepting that you might not come home tonight. Pakistan has lost more than 50,000 lives to terrorism and militancy, including thousands from the armed forces and law enforcement agencies. As a Ranger, you're on the front lines of this war. You face coordinated suicide attacks on your camps, ambushes on patrol routes, and IED explosions that can tear through your convoy in seconds. In October 2025, 7 Pakistani soldiers were killed and 13 injured in a coordinated suicide attack on a security forces camp. In June 2025, 16 Pakistani troops died when a suicide bomber rammed an explosive-laden vehicle into a military convoy in North Waziristan. These aren't isolated incidents. They're your daily reality. The total strength of Pakistan Rangers is 40,730 personnel split between Punjab Rangers and Sindh Rangers. That might sound like a large force, but you're spread thin across thousands of kilometers of hostile border territory and deployed in Pakistan's most dangerous cities. You guard the border with India, one of the world's most militarized frontiers. You conduct operations against militants in Karachi, where gang warfare, sectarian violence, and terrorism create a toxic cocktail of danger. Unlike soldiers who deploy for specific operations and then return to base, you're permanently embedded in conflict zones. Your checkpost becomes a target. Your patrol route is mapped by militants. Your uniform makes you a marked man every time you step outside your compound. And here's what makes it worse. You often lack the advanced equipment and body armor that regular military forces receive. You're expected to counter heavily armed militants with outdated weapons and insufficient protective gear. You're paramilitary, caught between being police and being military, receiving neither the resources of the army nor the local knowledge advantages of civilian police. Section 2. The poverty wages. Now let's talk about what you're paid to risk your life in this environment. Virtually nothing. The financial reality of being a Pakistani Ranger is insulting. According to available data, a park ranger in Pakistan earns an average gross salary of 905,257 rupees annually. That's roughly 75,438 rupees per month, or about $270. But that's the average figure that includes senior positions. If you're a sepoy or Lance Naik, the backbone of the Rangers, you're making significantly less. Basic pay for lower ranks starts around 25,000 rupees to 35,000 rupees per month, approximately 90 to 125 US dollars. Yes, you read that correctly. You're defending Pakistan's borders, conducting counter-terrorism operations in Karachi, facing suicide bombers, and your monthly salary is less than what a delivery driver in Karachi can make. You do receive some allowances: house rent allowance at 45% of basic pay, medical allowances, and special duty allowances if you're in particularly dangerous areas. But let's be honest, these additions barely bring you to survival level, let alone comfortable living. Compare this to the politicians you protect during VIP duty. Federal ministers recently received a 159% salary hike, while ministers of state and advisors got up to 188% increases. Meanwhile, after 36 years of waiting, Punjab Rangers finally received 84.809 million rupees as reward money for seizing 25 kilograms of gold, worth 565 million rupees back in 1989. 36 years for a reward. Let that sink in. Your financial stress is crushing. You can't afford quality education for your children. Your family lives in substandard housing. Medical emergencies become financial catastrophes. You watch corrupt politicians and criminals live in luxury while you, the person risking death to maintain order, struggle to pay utility bills. And when you're injured or killed in the line of duty, Compensation is inadequate and often delayed by bureaucratic red tape. Your widow and children might wait years for the benefits they're owed, drowning in debt while government officials shuffle papers. Section 3. The political pawn syndrome. Here's where your life as a Pakistani Ranger gets psychologically torturous. You're not really serving Pakistan. You're serving whatever political faction currently controls the Interior Ministry. The Rangers are technically a civil armed force under the Ministry of Interior, which means you're subject to political direction. And Pakistani politics is a vicious game where you become the weapon wielded by those in power against their opponents. Take the Karachi operation that began in 2013. You were deployed to curb criminal, religious, and political violence in Pakistan's largest and most dangerous city. And to be fair, you succeeded in many ways. Crime rates dropped, targeted killings decreased, and some sense of order returned to Karachi streets. But then the mission shifted. Instead of just targeting criminals and militants, you found yourself conducting raids against specific political parties, particularly the MQM, Muttahida Qawmi movement. The MQM accused Rangers of extrajudicial killings, enforced disappearances, and torture of their members. Human rights organizations documented allegations of arbitrary arrests and abuse. Were you following legitimate orders to dismantle criminal networks embedded in political parties? Or were you being used to eliminate political opposition to the ruling establishment? The truth is probably somewhere in between, but here's your problem. You're the one kicking down doors and making arrests. When allegations of abuse emerge, your face is on the front page, not the politician who gave the order. The judiciary puts pressure on you, questioning your authority, probity, and professionalism. The media alternates between praising you as saviors and condemning you as oppressors. Political parties use you as a talking point, either your heroes cleaning up the city or your military enforcers crushing democratic opposition, depending on which party is currently being targeted. You can't win, follow orders aggressively, and face accusations of human rights abuses. Exercise restraint and get blamed for letting criminals and terrorists operate freely. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't, and always held accountable for decisions made far above your pay grade. Section 4. The jurisdictional nightmare. Adding to your misery is the fact that you exist in a legal and operational gray zone that makes your job nearly impossible. You're not police, but you perform policing functions. You're not military, but you conduct military-style operations. You're supposed to cooperate with local police, but there's massive tension, mistrust, and turf warfare between Rangers and police forces. The Pakistan police view you with suspicion and resentment. They see Rangers as an outside force parachuted into their jurisdiction, with superior equipment and powers but without local knowledge or accountability to civilian oversight. Police complain that Rangers conduct operations without coordination, make arrests that undermine ongoing police investigations, and take credit for successes while leaving police to handle the aftermath. From your perspective, the police are hopelessly corrupt, politicized, and ineffective. You're brought in precisely because local police have failed. But you don't have the civilian policing skills, investigation, community relations, criminal justice system navigation that effective law enforcement requires. This creates a coordination nightmare. Intelligence isn't shared. Operations get compromised. Criminals exploit the gaps between agencies. And when something goes wrong, both sides blame each other while the public loses faith in all law enforcement. Your legal powers are also confusing and politically charged. Under the Anti-Terrorism Act, you can detain or arrest people without charge or warrant when given special powers. This makes you incredibly powerful and incredibly vulnerable to accusations of abuse. The Supreme Court has rejected proposals for Rangers to establish their own policing structure, insisting you work with police. But meaningful cooperation is rare. You're essentially trying to operate in a system designed for failure. You have immense coercive power, but limited legal clarity. You're expected to solve problems that decades of civilian governance failures created, but you're given neither the tools nor the authority to address root causes. You're a blunt instrument being used for delicate surgery, and everyone blames you when it goes badly. Section 5. The Human Rights Burden. Let's address the elephant in the room, the allegations of human rights abuses that follow Rangers like a dark shadow. Multiple human rights reports document serious concerns. The U.S. State Department's country reports on human rights practices repeatedly note that military, police, and law enforcement agencies continue to carry out significant campaigns against militant and terrorist groups, but also that Violence, abuse, and extrajudicial killings persist. Allegations against rangers include extrajudicial killings disguised as encounter killings, enforced disappearances of political activists and suspected militants, torture during interrogation and detention, arbitrary arrests without proper legal process, use of excessive force during operations. Now here's the complexity you live with every day. Some of these allegations are probably true. Some are probably exaggerated or fabricated by the very criminals and terrorists you're fighting. And you, the individual ranger on the ground, might have witnessed both legitimate operations and abuses. Maybe you've seen colleagues cross lines, beating detainees, killing suspects who could have been captured alive, or being influenced by political pressure to target specific individuals. Maybe you've also seen instances where force was absolutely necessary, where the person claiming abuse was actually a militant or criminal, where split-second decisions saved lives. But you can't talk about this. You can't speak publicly. You can't explain the impossible situations you face. The organization protects itself through silence, and you're expected to maintain that silence even when it eats away at your conscience. The psychological burden is immense. If you follow orders that violate human rights, you carry guilt and fear prosecution. If you refuse such orders, you face punishment within your own organization. If you try to report misconduct, you're labeled a traitor. The institution's reputation matters more than your individual moral crisis. And here's the cruelest irony. While you're accused of being above the law, you're actually subject to harsh military discipline. Your organization can punish you for minor infractions, while powerful officers who order abuses face no accountability. You're the foot soldier who gets blamed while decision-makers remain untouched. Section 6. The family sacrifice. Beyond the immediate dangers and moral dilemmas, your life sucks as a Pakistani Ranger because of what it does to your family. Research on military and paramilitary families worldwide shows that deployment stress creates profound challenges. Your spouse faces financial hardship, loneliness, single-parent responsibilities, and constant anxiety about your safety. Your children grow up with an absent father, struggling with emotional and behavioral issues that stem from your unpredictable schedule and dangerous work. In Pakistan's context, these challenges are amplified. Your wife can't easily find employment due to social constraints and your frequent relocations. Your family lives in Rangers accommodation that's often substandard. Basic housing in dangerous areas without adequate security or amenities. Your children attend schools that lack resources, limiting their future opportunities. Every time you leave for duty, your family wonders if you'll return. They hear news of attacks on Rangers personnel and immediately fear the worst. They wait anxiously for your phone call confirming you're safe. This chronic stress takes a severe psychological toll. Spouses develop anxiety and depression, children exhibit trauma symptoms, and family bonds strain under the weight of constant fear. You miss your children's milestones, their first words, school performances, graduations. You're absent for family celebrations and present only for brief, exhausted visits between deployments. Your relationship with your spouse deteriorates as communication becomes sporadic and stress makes both of you irritable and distant. When you do come home, you bring the trauma with you. You have nightmares about attacks. You're hypervigilant, unable to relax. You might turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms, smoking, silence, emotional withdrawal. Your family doesn't understand what you've experienced and you can't explain it to them. The gap widens, and there's no support system. Unlike Western military forces with family counseling, mental health services, and support networks, Pakistani Rangers receive virtually nothing. Mental health is stigmatized. Seeking help is seen as weakness. You're expected to man up and handle it, leaving you isolated with your trauma while your family suffers alongside you. Section 7. The identity crisis. Finally, your life sucks as a Pakistani Ranger because you don't really know what you are anymore. Are you a soldier? Not quite. You're paramilitary, which means you have some military structure, but you're not part of the Pakistan Armed Forces. You don't receive military prestige, benefits, or recognition. Are you a police officer? Not really. You're not trained in civilian policing, you don't answer to police command structures, and you're not integrated into the criminal justice system the same way. Are you a security guard? Sometimes it feels that way. You spend countless hours on boring checkpoint duty or guarding VIP residences while politicians enjoy luxury you'll never afford. Are you an anti-terrorism commando? Occasionally, when you're conducting raids against militant hideouts in Karachi or border operations against infiltrators. This identity confusion is more than just semantic. It affects how you're trained, equipped, deployed, and treated. It affects your legal status, your career progression, and your sense of purpose. You're a hybrid force that's neither one thing nor another, lacking the advantages of either role while accumulating the disadvantages of both. You watch your cousins in the Pakistan Army receive better pay, better equipment, better training, and better public respect. You see police officers with clearer career paths and, theoretically, stronger legal protections. Meanwhile, you're stuck in the middle, doing the dirtiest work with the least support. And what happens when your service ends? There's no clear transition. Your skills don't easily translate to civilian employment. You're not fully a veteran in the way Army personnel are. You've sacrificed years of your life in dangerous service, but society doesn't quite know what to do with you afterward. The Rangers Anti-Terrorism Wing in Karachi, formed in 2004 following increased violence, represents the expanding and evolving role thrust upon you. Today you're border guards, tomorrow you're conducting urban counter-terrorism operations, next week you're managing flood response as first responders during natural disasters. Your mission keeps expanding while your resources and recognition stay stagnant. Conclusion. So there you have it. Your life sucks as a Pakistani Ranger because you're paid poverty wages to face death daily. You're a political pawn manipulated by whoever controls the government. You're caught in jurisdictional warfare with police while lacking clear legal authority. You're burdened with human rights allegations, some deserved, some not, while having no voice to explain the impossible situations you face. Your family sacrifices alongside you with no support or recognition. And you exist in an identity limbo, neither fully military nor fully civilian, lacking the advantages of either. You're asked to solve Pakistan's deepest problems: terrorism, organized crime, political violence, border security, with inadequate resources, unclear authority, and under constant public suspicion. You're expected to be warriors, peacekeepers, investigators, and servants of the state, all while earning less than a retail clerk and living under constant threat. The tragic irony is that Pakistan desperately needs effective security forces. The Rangers have, in many instances, made real contributions to public safety. The Karachi operation, despite its controversies, did reduce violence significantly. Rangers personnel have died protecting Pakistan's borders and cities. Their sacrifice is real, but the system treats you as expendable. Politicians use you for their agendas. The public alternates between praising you as heroes and condemning you as villains. Your organization protects its reputation rather than its personnel. And you, the individual ranger, are left to carry all of this alone. If you're considering joining the Pakistan Rangers, understand this isn't just a difficult job. It's a life sentence of danger, poverty, moral ambiguity, and institutional betrayal. You'll serve your country, yes, but your country may not serve you back. And if you're already wearing the Rangers uniform, you have my respect for enduring what most Pakistanis couldn't handle. You deserve better pay, better equipment, better mental health support, clearer legal authority, and recognition for the impossible burden you carry. You're stuck in a system that's broken, one that demands everything from you while giving almost nothing in return. Your life sucks, not because you're failing, but because the system was designed to make you fail. That's the brutal truth about being a Pakistani Ranger. And until Pakistan's leadership fundamentally reforms how paramilitary forces are compensated, deployed, and supported, your life will continue to suck in ways that most civilians will never understand.